You ever have one of those weeks where you feel like your whole life gets bulldozed? Literally, that was me standing in my muddy boots at sunrise, watching a row of shiny yellow machines line up in front of my family's barn, 5 generations all smashed to splinters in under an hour and not a single legal paper in sight. Just a smug little ruling from the HOA's board of directors that said our barn was ruining the aesthetic harmony of their $1 million resort community. There was this woman, I'll never forget her stepping out of her Bentley like she just checkmated the world, lips curled in a way that told you she'd never lost a single thing that mattered. But she didn't know about the water valve hidden on my land or that I held the only key. And let me tell you, it took less than 3 days for every last drop in their fancy pools to stop flowing and for cow manure to start showing up where sunbathers used to tan. That's the kind of week it was. Now back up with me a second. 3 months before I buried my father on this land, right where that bulldozer squatted greedy and mechanical. Dad dropped dead with a wrench in his hand trying to fix the old gate, same one that had stuck since before I was born. Paramedics said it was a stroke, quick and merciful, but watching the only man who understood me disappear into the earth, there was nothing merciful about that. And now Victoria Sterling, the self-appointed queen of Pine Valley Estates, had the nerve to turn that patch of ground sacred to my family into a junkyard. I felt something inside snap, same way that gate had threatened to for decades. See, this wasn't just a barn, it was our story. Grandpa Joe told me how his dad cleared these 40 acres with nothing but a stubborn mule and an even more stubborn attitude. Built the first barn in 1923, back when storing grain was worth more than gold. We raised cattle, chickens, and 3 kids who'd only come back for Christmas or funerals. Dad used to joke that Caldwell blood never ran too far from this dirt, and even though I'd finished an engineering degree, had job offers lined up like dominoes, I could never really leave. This land, the old oak with our initials carved deep, it was more than property. It was home, roots and all. So when Victoria showed up that morning stepping down from her Bentley in a cream blazer that probably cost more than my old Ford, her heels ticking against the gravel, I knew it was going to be one of those days. She flashed me that funeral director sympathy, Mr. Caldwell. I'm so sorry for your loss, but the law is the law, and our community needs to modernize. She gestured at my cows like she'd found a dead possum in her pantry. She handed me a demolition notice addressed to my father, dead 3 months, wrong address anyway, and called it an unfortunate paperwork error. The thing is, you don't accidentally mail life-changing documents to a dead man at the wrong address. She shrugged, flashed a smile colder than the steel on that bulldozer, and told me not to stand in the way of progress. That night I sat out on the porch, thinking about Dad, listening to the distant hum of McMansions and their 3-car garages, the same ones that sprang up around us like a bad rash. Our battered farmhouse, creaking in the wind, had become the eyesore, a leftover from a time folks like Victoria wanted erased. I fished out the brass key Dad left me and wondered what secrets it might still unlock. Then the wind shifted, and I caught a whiff of something sharp, chemical, nothing like the hay and manure I was raised on. It drifted straight from Victoria's property. I'd smelled stuff like that in college chemistry labs. It did not belong in a neighborhood. Come morning, I poked around Dad's old study, curiosity gnawing at me. That brass key fit the safe behind his desk, and inside gold, if you knew what you were looking at, original survey maps, water rights, documentation, and a hand-drawn blueprint marked Pine Valley Water Control System. Grandpa Joe's signature stamped everywhere. Turns out our family didn't just own the dirt, we held the valve that supplied every drop of water to Victoria's luxury paradise, and our rights ironclad, locked in by city seal, exempt from HOA rules. Grandpa Joe had made sure this farm would never bow to their kind. With those papers in hand, I drove straight to Dad's lawyer, Jake Morrison, who'd practically helped raise me after Mom left. Jake stared at the documents like he'd found the Holy Grail. "Ethan, this is wild," he muttered, sliding on his glasses. "Your granddad basically made himself water commissioner for all of Pine Valley. He told me Victoria had visited him recently, sniffing around about eminent domain and fast-tracking farm demolitions. Jake's gut told him she was working an angle, maybe laundering cash, maybe just power-hungry, but definitely not playing by the rules. Every property she'd snapped up followed a weird pattern, bought low, paid in cash, all through some shell company with no employees and a fake-sounding environmental name. That's when I called Maria Santos, the one reporter in Pine Valley, who wasn't afraid of asking hard questions. Maria had seen this before Victoria, or someone with her name, buying up rural land across state lines, pushing out families, promising new developments that never showed. Maria had environmental reports too. Water quality in Pine Valley had been tanking for months, but every official complaint got swept under the rug. Someone upstairs was helping cover tracks. And just to make things spicier that afternoon, Detective Sarah Chen knocked on my door. She played it by the book, asked about suspicious activity, odd noises, traffic at night. But when I brought up Victoria in the barn, her eyes flashed like she'd been waiting for someone to say it out loud. Before she left, she slipped me her personal cell number, told me to call directly if anything weird happened. I got the message loud and clear. This wasn't just some HOA spat anymore. By midweek, the real campaign had started. Facebook groups sprouted up overnight, painting me as some crazy farmer dragging down property values, endangering children with industrial farming. Victoria even brought in a local influencer to shoot a mini-doc editing shots of my perfectly normal pasture into a dystopian hellscape. I'll admit I didn't know squat about PR, but I learned fast. That Thursday, Tom Bradley, our oldest farmer, showed up grinning, drone in hand. "Time to show 'em what real farming looks like," he said. Together we launched a YouTube series, Behind the Barn, broadcasting the truth about our sustainable practices, the real Pine Valley warts and all. Maria dug deeper. That Green Valley Environmental Solutions Company, total sham. Registered to a UPS box in Delaware run by a guy who'd supposedly died years ago. Same pattern showed up in Montana and Colorado, fake sales below market prices, longtime residents run off. Then Detective Chen called again, voice tight with frustration. "Ethan, every time I try to get a warrant to check out Victoria's property, my supervisor stonewalls me. Someone powerful's protecting her." By the weekend, Victoria's media machine tried a new angle, casting me as mentally unstable, broken by grief, unfit to run my own land. Suddenly supporting me meant you were enabling a disturbed man, not defending rural traditions. Smart move, but I had one thing left up my sleeve, the water valve. That Sunday, with half of Pine Valley glued to their screens, I led my cows, decked out in bandanas, down to Victoria's pristine pool. Live streamed the whole thing. Bessie, my best Holstein, became an overnight celebrity, flopping in the mud and turning her luxury resort into a barnyard spa. The internet exploded, comments, memes, people loving every second. But here's where it twisted. As the pool drained, viewers noticed industrial pipes exposed at the bottom, way too big for any normal plumbing. Comments flew in, some from folks claiming to be ex-DEA, saying it looked like a chemical processing vent, not pool lines. Within an hour, Detective Chen and a pair of unmarked federal SUVs rolled up. DEA agents in hazmat suits raided Victoria's house. Turns out her green company was a money laundering front, her mansion a hidden fentanyl lab supplying drugs across the state. My dad hadn't died of natural causes either. The agents found evidence of electrical sabotage meant to trigger a fatal heart event. His last act trying to fix that gate put him in the wrong place at the wrong time. Victoria's arrest was only the start. The cartel she worked for tried to threaten me with a fake kidnapping, but the feds were ready, used it as bait to bring down the whole network. By week's end, I'd watched handcuffed men carted away, and my story, streamed live from a muddy cow pool, spark a federal investigation that took down criminals across 3 states. 6 months later, I sat in front of Congress telling the story of how a barn demolition led to the biggest rural drug bust in the state's history. Victoria got 15 years, but her testimony helped break open other cases. Our HOA was dissolved, replaced by a real community council. My farm became a center for sustainable agriculture. Tom's YouTube channel exploded, 2 million subscribers. Maria won awards for her reporting. Detective Chen now leads a federal rural crime task force. Victoria's pool. Now it's a natural pond where kids splash alongside cows in the summer. Bessie's face is on brochures, a symbol of a community that refused to be erased. I get letters from farmers all over the country asking for help, advice, sometimes just hope. So if you're watching this and wondering if standing up for yourself can make a difference, let me tell you, sometimes justice shows up in muddy boots holding a brass key, and sometimes it's the smallest act, like turning a water valve, that tips the scales. Have you ever stood your ground and watched the world change because of it? Tell your story in the comments. If mine meant something to you, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to remember that one stubborn farmer or one loud cow really can change everything.